What if the one thing that fuels our morning's coffee was seen as a deadly toxin on another world? That's where this story begins, on the research station Aurelia Prime. Orbiting a gas giant with emerald green storms, the Intergalactic Council gathered for what they thought would be a routine cultural exchange. Delegates from 20 species sat around a vast crystalline table that shimmered with bioluminescent light. Each civilization had brought with them a traditional drinker, symbol of friendship, heritage, and survival. The insectoid Rexians offered a fermented nectar that foamed like molten gold. The aquatic Thalorians unveiled a translucent drink distilled from deep-sea fungi, bubbling softly in spherical containers that floated weightlessly in the air. The avian Corvaxi presented a pale blue extract that smelled faintly of ozone like lightning trapped in liquid. Then came the humans. Commander Elise Ward, the human representative, walked to the center of the chamber carrying nothing more than a small steel carafe and a few ceramic mugs. No glowing containers, no levitating spheres, just a humble pot and cups. "What is this substance?" hissed Chancellor Zurich, a tall, crystalline being whose voice sounded like glass shattering. Elise smiled, poured a steaming dark liquid into a mug, and held it out as if it were the simplest thing in the world. "It's called coffee." The reaction was immediate. Several delegates leaned back as if she had pulled out a vial of poison. The air filled with the sound of translators humming in confusion. A Thalorian's gills fluttered rapidly as it whispered, "Toxic alkaloids, stimulant compounds. This is unsafe for consumption." The Council's medical scanners activated automatically, analyzing the steam rising from the cup. Alarms blinked crimson across several consoles. Warning, caffeine detected, classified as hazardous stimulant, lethal to multiple species in moderate doses. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Elise, unfazed, took the mug, lifted it to her lips, and took a long sip. The rich aroma filled the air, bitter and warm, a scent alien to every species in the room. She let out a satisfied sigh. "Ah, perfect." The council chamber erupted into chaos. Delegates shouted over each other, demanding she put the cup down. Some called for security intervention. Others whispered about humans being reckless, dangerous, even creatures who poisoned themselves for pleasure. But Elise only leaned back in her chair. "You think this is poison," she said, her voice steady. "For us, this is life. Coffee keeps us sharp, awake, moving forward. It is the fuel of our species' ingenuity." The Vrexian delegate clicked its mandibles in horror. "You mean, you willingly ingest something that could kill half the council?" Elise raised an eyebrow. "Not could. Would." Silence. Every eye was locked on her, the steaming mug still in her hand. What humans called coffee was nothing short of a paradox to the galaxy, deadly to almost everyone, yet sacred to the species that thrived on it. And in that moment, the council realized, humanity wasn't just different. Humanity was terrifyingly adaptable. The silence that followed Elise Ward's statement was not peaceful, it was heavy, like the charged stillness before a thunderstorm. Delegates exchanged uneasy glances, and the translation devices hummed with static, as if unsure how to process what had just been said. Council security units, a pair of towering drones shaped like silver statues, shifted subtly, their eyes glowing red. They hadn't been ordered to intervene yet, but the tension in the chamber made their presence loom larger. "You intoxicate yourselves willingly." Chancellor Zurich's crystalline form pulsed with rapid vibrations. Each word sounded brittle. "This is not bravery. This is madness." Elise placed the mug on the table, steam curling upward like a phantom. "Madness?" she asked, almost amused. "No, this is resilience. A small, bitter drink that gives us the focus to work through sleepless nights, the strength to endure battles, the courage to keep building when exhaustion says stop." The aquatic Thalorian delegate shuddered, droplets of moisture spraying the floor. "But such compounds tear at the nervous system. They overstimulate, they destroy equilibrium. How can your species survive prolonged exposure?" Elisa's eyes gleamed with a spark of human pride. "Because we adapt. What would poison you, fuels us. What would drive you into shock, sharpens our minds." The chamber buzzed with nervous chatter. Delegates whispered in their native tongues, translators straining to keep up. Some called humans reckless gamblers with biology. Others murmured about hidden evolutionary advantages. It was the avian Corvaxi who finally spoke, their feathers bristling as they tilted their narrow beak. "If you willingly consume something lethal to others, what else does your species consume? What toxins does humanity call nourishment?" Elise chuckled softly and leaned back in her chair. "Do you really want to know? Chili peppers, alcohol, nicotine, sugar, salt, things that could incapacitate or kill some of you. Yet for us, they are culture, ritual, sometimes even comfort. We don't just survive danger, we turn it into tradition. The council fell quiet again, but it wasn't just fear this time. It was something else. Unease mixed with curiosity. Humanity's reputation across the stars was already complicated, ambitious, bold, unpredictable. But this painted them in an entirely new light. The insectoid Vexian delegate clicked its mandibles nervously. If this drink is your strength, then share it if you dare. Let us see what it does. All eyes turned to Elise. She tapped her fingers against the mug, considering. Then she smirked. You won't last 2 sips. But if you're brave enough, I'll pour. The council chamber erupted once more, this time not in panic but in a clash between fear and pride. Some species leaned back, unwilling to risk their lives for curiosity. Others leaned forward, driven by the challenge, unwilling to let humans boast superiority without contest. And so, in that crystalline hall above a swirling gas giant, a deadly gamble began. 1 sip of poison, 1 chance to understand humanity. The chamber dimmed as security drones lowered the lights, a signal that what was about to happen would be formally recorded for interspecies archives. Elise took her time, deliberately, as though she were conducting a ritual. From a small thermos at her side, she poured the steaming liquid into 3 delicate crystalline cups provided by the council. The dark, almost black surface of the drink rippled under the chamber's glow. Delegates leaned forward, their eyes wide, their bodies tense. Even those who claimed they would never touch the poison could not look away. For many, this was their first encounter with what humans called coffee. Elise pushed the first cup toward the insectoid Vexian delegate. Its mandibles clicked nervously, producing a sound like knives tapping glass. You asked for proof, Elise said, her voice steady. Here it is. The Vexian hesitated. Its exoskeleton plates shifted uneasily as it lifted the tiny cup in its clawed grasp. If I perish, it hissed. Let the council record the recklessness of humankind. Elise smirked. If you perish from a sip, it only proves my point. A hush fell over the chamber. The Vexian tipped the liquid into its mouth. For a moment, nothing happened. Then its body jerked. Mandibles clattered violently as its limbs twitched. A faint hiss escaped its breathing vents, and its compound eyes dilated to black orbs. Gasps filled the air. Some delegates half froze from their seats, expecting the alien to collapse. But then the twitching slowed. The Vexian's breathing steadied. Its mandibles stilled, and after a long pause, it released a low, vibrating laugh. This, it rasped, burns like molten stone, yet it sharpens thought, the patterns of the chamber walls. I see them more clearly now. I feel awake. The chamber exploded into chaos. Some shouted that the Vexian had been poisoned, others that it had been enlightened. The aquatic Thalorian backed away, horrified, while the avian Corvaxi leaned so far forward that their feathers brushed the floor. Elise raised her own cup and drank calmly, her eyes never leaving the others. That, she said, is coffee, humanity's daily fuel. It does not kill lust powers us. Imagine a species that begins each day with this surge coursing through their veins. That is who we are. For the first time, the delegates began to understand. This wasn't just about a drink. This was about what it revealed, humanity's relationship with adversity. While other species fled from toxins, humans found ways to embrace them, to turn weakness into strength. The chamber had begun the day certain that humans were fragile. Now, doubt crept in. Perhaps fragility was not the right word. Perhaps unpredictably dangerous was closer to the truth. The moment the Vexian spoke, the entire chamber seemed to shift. Delegates who once sneered at humanity now looked at Elise with something closer to awe suspicion. The very air seemed charged, as though the steam rising from the coffee itself carried an invisible power. The avian Corvaxi could no longer resist. With a sudden movement, they extended one clawed hand. If the Vexian survived, then so shall I, the bird-like diplomat declared. Their feathers puffed, a natural display of both fear and bravado. Elise poured another cup, sliding it across the table. Careful, she warned with a smirk. Your kind has delicate systems. 1 sip might feel like flying too close to a star. The Corvaxi tilted its beak upward proudly. My ancestors navigated solar winds with nothing but instinct. A sip of liquid cannot break me. With that, it tipped the cup back. The reaction was immediate. The Corvaxi's feathers flared out like a burning halo, eyes darting wildly. It staggered, claws scraping against the table, wings trembling as though caught in a storm. Gasps echoed again, but then, a sharp, piercing laugh filled the chamber. Incredible, the Corvaxi croaked, feathers still vibrating. The world slows, Yet I race ahead. I see 10 moves in every game, 10 routes in every path. Its eyes locked on Elise. This is power in liquid form. Fear swept through the room. If coffee could sharpen even alien minds, what did that say about humans who consumed it daily, not as ritual, but as habit? The aquatic Thalorian recoiled, tendrils writhing. It is corruption. A species that thrives on poison is unstable, dangerous, a threat to balance. But others whispered differently. The crystalline beings of Zerith leaned together, their bodies glowing softly as they exchanged rapid light pulses. The reptilian Gathorians muttered in their guttural tongue, eyes narrowed in new respect. For centuries, humans had been considered clever but fragile and ambitious species, climbing too fast without the hardiness of others. But now, that narrative cracked. To consume poison not only without harm, but with benefit. That was not fragility. That was a terrifying resilience. Elise leaned back, folding her arms. Now you begin to understand, she said softly. This drink is not just taste, it is discipline, focus, perseverance. Every great feat of humanity was fought, inventions built, empires risen was. Fueled by this so-called poison, the room fell silent. Even those who would never touch the drink could not deny its symbolic weight. Humanity, once underestimated, now seemed like a predator disguised as prey, dangerous in ways the galaxy had not accounted for. And though none spoke it aloud, one chilling thought lingered in every delegate's mind. If this was only one of humanity's harmless poisons, what else were they capable of consuming? The council chamber was no longer the sterile, orderly place it had been at the start of the session. It pulsed with unease, tension, and something like excitement. Elise could feel it. This was no longer about a drink, it was about dominance. The Gathorian warlord, scales glinting under the chamber's lights, slammed a clawed fist against the table. Enough of whispers and half-sips. Humans claim this coffee strengthens them. Then let us see what true strength it offers. I will drink it all. The chamber erupted in protests. The Thalorian shrieked that it was suicide. The Korvaxi squawked warnings, while the Vrexian clicked its mandibles in admiration. But the warlord only bared his jagged teeth. If a fragile human can endure this poison daily, then a Gathorian warrior will not falter. Elise studied him for a long moment, then shrugged. Your funeral, she murmured, pouring a full cup and sliding it forward. The warlord grasped it with both clawed hands and, without hesitation, swallowed the entire serving in one gulp. For a moment, silence reigned. Then his eyes widened. His chest heaved as if struck by lightning. The ground shook as his massive tail slammed against the chamber floor. He roared, a sound so deep it rattled the crystalline walls. Drones swarmed forward, ready to restrain him, but then, shockingly, the warlord began to laugh. It was not the laugh of madness, but of exhilaration. By the suns, he bellowed, voice echoing, my heart races like fire, my mind runs faster than my blade. This is no poison, this is a warrior's brew. Gasps filled the room. For a species bred for combat to proclaim admiration, no reverence for a human drink was unthinkable. The warlord raised the cup high. From this day, the Gathorians will honor humanity's fuel. You are not fragile prey, you are kin of fire. The proclamation sent ripples across the chamber. Some delegates were horrified, others intrigued. The Thalorians slumped in disgust, but several crystalline Zerith pulsed with excitement, already imagining trade negotiations. Elise leaned back, hiding a satisfied smile behind her mug. She hadn't planned for this outcome, but she recognized the opportunity. In one sitting, humanity had shifted the council's perception. What had begun as mockery now bordered on reverence and fear. Still, she knew the danger. Fear could elevate, but it could also isolate. And as the warlord's roar still echoed in the crystalline chamber, Elise realized this demonstration might echo far beyond politics. For humanity had not just introduced coffee to the galaxy. They had introduced the idea that what others called poison, humans called power, and that idea was far more dangerous than the drink itself. The roar of the Gathorian warlord still vibrated in the chamber when the Chancellor struck the crystal gavel, calling the council back to order. The delegates quieted, though their eyes remained wide, their thoughts racing. The chamber smelled faintly of roasted beans, and steamer scent now forever burned into their memory. Chancellor Zeric's crystalline body pulsed with slow, deliberate light. This council convened to discuss trade routes, not the reckless consumption of poison. His tone was sharp, but beneath it lay unease. And yet, we cannot deny what we have witnessed. The Vrexian delegate raised its claw, mandibles clicking. This substance sharpens, it awakens. What humans wield casually, others could weaponize. The Thalorian's tendrils writhed furiously. To allow this toxin to spread would destabilize our peoples. Imagine entire armies drinking it before battle. Madness, destruction, chaos. The Korvaxi tilted its feathered head. Perhaps, but imagine the innovation, the progress, the creations, a universe awake. The debate erupted into chaos again, each species caught between fear and fascination. Trade proposals flickered across screens, countered by demands for bans. The council chamber, usually so united in logic, fractured like glass under a hammer. Through it all, Elise Ward remained calm, sipping her mug as though the storm of politics was nothing more than background noise. She had seen this before on Earth, in boardrooms, in parliaments. Coffee had always divided people. Some loved it, some feared it, but none ignored it. Finally, Chancellor Zarek turned his crystalline gaze toward her. "Human," he said slowly, "you have altered the perception of your species here today. Some will see you as reckless, others will see you as resilient, but none will see you as weak again." Elise set her cup down with a soft clink. "Good," she said simply. "That was the point." The Chancellor hesitated, then gave the faintest shimmer of acknowledgement. "Leave the chamber. The council will deliberate." As Elise gathered her things, she caught the eyes of several delegates. The Vrexian mandibles clicked in something close to respect. The Korvaxi inclined its feathered head, and the Gathorian warlord, still riding the rush of caffeine, slammed a fist over his chest in salute. When Elise finally stepped out into the corridor, the heavy chamber doors closing behind her, she allowed herself a small smile. Humanity had brought many things to the galaxy: music, art, ambition, conflict. But today, they had introduced something new, not just coffee. A reminder that humans, for all their fragility, carried within them a defiance that could turn weakness into strength. In the silence of the corridor, Elise whispered to herself with a grin, "Wait until they try espresso."